Welcome back to Process Over Pressure. I'm Chad Paris, founder of Stonefly Consulting Group. This show exists for one reason and one reason only, to give a voice to the real people behind real businesses. Not the highlight reel, the full story, the grit, the grind, and the moments that they almost quit. Today's guest grew up working construction sites, laying drywall, framing walls for a family business his grandfather built from nothing. The First Drywall Company in New Mexico, actually. He took everything that background taught him and channeled it into commercial real estate. He is the co-founder and commercial division at Berkshire Hathaway, New Mexico. Built a boutique team with a private equity mindset, and he's done it the hard way, organically. On his own terms, he's a new dad, an outdoorsman, and someone who calls himself a problem solver, not a broker. And you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about in about 5 minutes. Christian Fowle, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you for having me on.
Well, we're excited to have you. I'll tell you this, the last time I talked to you, you were getting a cup of black coffee with honey, I believe. So what are we having today? What are we having today?
Man, I'm running off of air and grit today, man. I haven't even drinking water today, I don't think. So it's just been one of those days.
Real business owner right here, right?
Yeah.
Some days you don't even get coffee. You're lucky if you grab lunch, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, man, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. You and I have had a chance to have a little pre-talk and get to know each other. I think that's part of what I enjoy, just getting to know people that's out there. And tell us where you're coming from. Tell us where you're located. Tell the audience where you're from.
Yeah, absolutely. Located here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, born and raised here. I moved away to Indiana for about 3 years. My wife was getting her doctorate degree, so I was running my business remotely at that point. That was an interesting period in life. It was good. It was nice to take a little step back. And, the business is actually very successful running it remotely at that point. But last year in February, we moved back. And then, just hit the ground running with really solidifying this company and this commercial division here in the state for Berkshire Hathaway. And man, it's been a crazy ride, ups and downs, and taught me a lot about people and myself, and just learning every day. So
that's great. And so you mentioned you have a wife, and I believe you have a newborn, right?
Yeah. He'll be 6 months on the 13th.
So tell us, which is harder, being a business owner or a dad?
I think being a dad is the easy part. It's just managing time, right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's only 6 months old, so I'm sure it gets more complex as time goes on. But no, it's the best. It's the best thing,
Yeah, it truly is. It's a fun time. Being a business owner and being responsible for that is, it's a vital. It's a time. It takes time. It takes a lot of time away from you, and then being able to navigate that and be a dad too is its own unique challenges, right? And tell us a little bit about kind of what you're seeing right now in commercial real estate and what's kind of happening, like what's going on in New Mexico, like what's happening right now, what are you seeing?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Commercial real estate is one of those things that, a lot of people like to say it's market sensitive with interest rates. However, that's not true at all. Things ebb and flow, but there's sales and there's leasing going on every single day. When the market's bad, things are on discount. When the market's good, there's more demand. So, there's always something going on. It's really just how you position yourself within the market, and how you provide value into the market. And so we've kind of positioned ourselves in the market to be, I would say, somewhat generalist with niching in industrial and investments. But, that's the economy's good right now. New Mexico is one of those economies that we don't get the big ups, but we also don't get the big lulls. And so kind of just rides out. A lot of our economy is based on government funding. A lot of government jobs here. The southeast of the state is in the Permian Basin. And so that's where a lot of our money comes from as well, oil and gas. Especially right now, I think there's going to be a huge boom here coming in the next, I would say actually less than a month. I think our oil reserves are going to run out by May 1st. That's what they're saying, because they're predicting, I mean, that the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, and they say that those oil tankers move at the speed of a bicycle, right? So they have to go all the way around the Horn of Africa and then into the port in Louisiana. And so we're still feeling, we haven't felt the effects in the economy of what
Yeah.
that's going to be just yet. And I think that'll affect everything quite substantially. I think that in New Mexico, I think we're going to see a boom actually, because we're going to ramp up oil production here internally and locally to fill
Yeah.
that demand.
Could be, it's always it's a unique time that we're in, and like you said, there's just so many unknowns, right? And
Yeah.
what I always find interesting, I live in Texas, and so we're very known for oil, and you're right, that whole area south of New Mexico and the Permian Basin, like you're talking about, there is a ton of oil under the ground there that just
Yeah.
people don't realize. It'll be interesting. It'll be something certain to watch, but I think that's what makes our country great is that it always seems to, whatever happens, we just kind of evolve and
Yeah.
find a way and figure it out. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
sometimes it's something good, sometimes it's bad. But at the end of the day, we are pretty resilient people. And we kind of figure out how to navigate and what, we can't control the situation sometimes. All we can do is just
You just keep
navigate,
on
right?
keeping on.
Keep
Yeah.
on keeping on.
Yeah. I agree.
So you talked about when we first talked, you was talking about your grandfather, and he started the first drywall company in New Mexico. What was the name of the drywall company?
It was called Less File Drywall.
Les File Drywall. So you
Yeah,
guys
which
out
is
there,
his
have you
name.
ever heard of that? Right here, this is his grandson. So when he started that, think about that. He went door to door. I mean that's how
Yep.
he started,
Yeah. In the 50s. I mean, they
and it
didn't have
really,
anything else. Yeah.
yeah, it was. There was no internet, there was no this. So maybe I know that story means a lot to you, and it's kind of your backbone.
Yeah.
Maybe tell a little story about how you got started, because uh, the the products that they used at that time was different than it was, and it's different.
It's yeah, all different, especially at that time. Because I mean, in the 50s, man, they were doing a lot of plaster, and different building techniques other than drywall.
Yeah,
And drywall was kind of a new thing that popped up on the scene back in the day. And so he was, farm boy from the panhandle of Oklahoma, Fargo, Oklahoma, big family, raised on a farm, not much going on in the panhandle. He knew that he had to get out. So he joined the military, became a MP, got stationed here in Albuquerque. And then when he got out, he knew that I think it just runs in the blood, the entrepreneurial spirit just runs in the blood. And he knew that he wanted to do something. And so he saw that there was quite a bit of activity going on in New Mexico. And I'm not really sure how he got put onto drywall, but one thing led to another. And he got an old little pickup truck and started going door to door, residentially, and just seeing if people needed drywall work, or for new builds. Hey, do you need work? And really it was him and one other handyman. And they were banging out all the work at that point. And really it was just all word of mouth, right? It was all word of mouth. There was, and back in the 50s, the communication devices were, I mean, as you know, they're not what they are
not
today,
no, no,
and so it was very, very interesting to see, like, you actually had to want it back in the day.
yeah,
Like, you really had to want to go and get it. And that's what I admire about, people coming from that generation, is that they didn't have as many resources as we have, but the people that made it, I mean, they were very successful. And
yeah,
so it was cool to see and hear that story, growing up. And, I grew up in the construction industry. And, every summer I never had a summer to myself. My dad threw me out on the job site and I hated it, man. I remember 13 years old picking up nails and trash on the job site while all my friends were like, just riding their bikes and doing the
yeah.
thing. It
You
was
were sweating.
it was a tough pill to swallow at first. And I still got to do those things, right? But they really instilled in me the value of hard work and sacrifice from a young age, and I think that's really important. I think that it's
Yeah.
more important now than ever, really, when everybody just wants to be a social media influencer, or you can do that, but you got to put in hard work to do things, right? It's
Yeah.
not there's no easy path, there's no secret sauce. The secret sauce is networking properly and putting in the work to do it. And I think that was kind of the foundation of where I came from. So
Yeah, no, you're so right, it's amazing, kind of where we are today with a lot of people that everybody's looking for the quick, fast dollar. They want to make
yeah,
it fast. They want to make a lot of money, but they want to do the least pass restricted to do that, right? Want to be easy. And I think there's something to be said about, like your grandfather and that legacy I'm sure that he left with you about hard work and learning how to do things and creating a way when it's not just handed to you. So, I think as people are listening to this show and entrepreneurs and our show is process over pressure for a reason. It's because it goes back to it goes back to the process. It really does. Everything goes back to that process. And so, to hear that story and him working, that work ethic is vital. It's huge, right? I'm sure you look at things in your own business today and the hard work and time put into it's paying off.
yeah. Well, I think one of the bigger lessons is too hard work is part of it, but more importantly, what was instilled was it's
Yeah.
about who you know too.
Mm,
And
sure.
that's another thing. So he built his drywall company, but he was such a good networker that he was able to get in with somebody that had a huge infrastructure before,
Mm,
and basically gave a company to him, and they struck a deal with royalties and stuff, but he was able to basically expand what he had going, being in the right place at the right time, building the right connections. And I think that even I mean that coincides with hard work. It's right there with just
yeah.
being just as important as hard work is who leveraging your connections and your resources.
Yeah, that's good. And when we talked last, you kind of made a comment about, hey, I was in construction and I realized that I didn't want to manage a
Yeah.
team, or I didn't want to manage that labor force, whole labor team. So what was it that there, or was there a defining moment when it's like, I don't want to, this is not for me. I don't want to do this. It kind of led you into where you are today. Like, do you remember that moment? Or maybe it was one, I don't know, could be one thing, two things, could be a bunch of things.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw my grandpa and my dad and my uncles, because they all worked in the business. They all
Yeah.
had their era to run the business, and it took a lot of time away from the family, right? As all entrepreneurial stuff does. But what really got me was, man, when you have to worry about the liability
Mm,
of, hey, I have scaffolding going around this hospital, and what is the liability risk on that if it isn't installed properly, or I have to manage 350 people, I have to be responsible for 350 mouths to feed, right? All of that stuff is, to me, was too much pressure.
yeah.
It was too much pressure to do that. But I loved the ecosystem that it was in, was helping develop, helping build things, helping make things better. I loved that whole aspect of it. But I was like, I did not want any of that liability,
Yeah.
right? None of that liability, none of that stress. My grandpa had 4 heart attacks during his lifetime.
Mm,
It was one of those things where I was like, man, I there's got to be a way to do it to where I can still, get the same fruit, but
yeah.
not have the same amount of stress. Commercial real estate, or real estate in general, wasn't even on my radar at all, and I kind of
Yeah.
just happened into it, and yeah, it ended up just being one of the best vehicles that I could have ever imagined to take me to where I want to go.
Yeah, that was gonna lead to my next question. So was it the real estate? I guess because it is still, I mean, even though it's in commercial real estate,
Mhm.
I have a belief that you're still connected to the construction side. It's still
Yeah,
building, the building side. Is that what made the transition for you a little easier? Because it still has that connection.
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that I have that background, I have that knowledge of, you know, development and stuff. And it's cool, man. I mean, it's cool seeing a project go from a piece of dirt to an actual usable facility, or retrofitting a dilapidated building and making it usable and seeing
Yeah.
life come back to the neighborhood, right? And that to me was the big thing, just making the philosophy of leaving things in better condition than you found them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, and I think, that's the a way kinda to honor your past a little bit because it's a connection back. At the same time, you're giving something back in New Mexico where you're taking maybe some older buildings or some older commercial property and getting people to invest in those to bring them back, to revitalize, and, that's like the full cycle, right? Kinda recycling it back and being used, so
Yeah.
that's really, really cool. When you started, I think you said you started with, is it Sperry Van Ness? Is that correct? You kinda got it. That's how you got your feet wet. So, your qualifying broker's like, yeah, he kinda told me this. He's like, "Hey, here's your phone book. Here's your phone." I don't know if he gave you a phone, maybe he gave
No.
you a sandwich and said, "All right, go and do it." So, you know, we know about your work history. We know you
Yeah.
grew up, like, having to work. What was that like for people listening? Like, because look, again, we go back. A lot of people just want it to be handed to them, and and they do, and I mean, make it easy. But
Yeah.
you're kind of given like a phone book, and it's like, go build your business, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how you started. So, what was it like? I mean, what was that like? Can you go back to those days?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The early days in real estate, I had to, I couldn't survive off of real estate alone. And that's
yeah,
another thing. It's a huge thing about real estate, but commercial real estate in particular is the first 3 years are the years in which you plant seeds, which they don't fruit very much, right? You might get some here, some there. I think I made like $17,000 my first year, and that's not enough to live off of. So I had to do other side jobs as well to work, but really wanted to focus in on real estate, and it made it difficult because um, at that time, I think it was 2018. The market was still good, everything was good, but I just didn't even know what to do, right? I didn't even know what commercial real estate was. And so what I did was I just asked as many questions as possible to the people that were there. So the good thing about Sperry Van Ness at that time was SVN was that all the brokers were very seasoned brokers, like 20, 30 years in the business, right? And they're kind of just riding out the remainder of their career, just coasting, right? So there wasn't a lot of energy, but there was a lot of knowledge in the
mhm.
office, right? And so I tried to tap into that as much as I could. And there was some good mentors in there. There's some good mentors that taught me how I wanted to be, and there was some mentors that taught me how I didn't want to be.
Those are
And
just as important.
it's just as important. Yeah, absolutely, man. And I kind of learned that really this is a process of building relationships, right? And I think the big jump for people is like, how do you initially get those first listings, those first relationships, right? And I think it's just being in the presence of people that do business, right? Put yourself in the presence of those who do business. Put yourself in that energy. Put yourself in the same physical vicinity and room,
Yeah,
right? And that's going to lead to conversations. That's going to lead to opportunities, even if you don't have anything to offer them of value at that time, right?
yeah,
Now I'm getting a little bit further in my career. People that I see, young men or women that put themselves in that position, I love to see it, and I wanna present them opportunities too, because I was once in that position, and I think
yeah,
that it all comes back around, right? So I think the big thing is how do I get my first clients? How do I get my first relationships and avatars, right? And I think it was first hitting, everybody in the office up that I could, that, "Hey, what can I do? I'll do stuff for free. I'll work for free for you. You want me to call on your leads? You want me to do your showings for you? What do you need me to do? I'll do it all." Right? So I started off that. I started building rapport. And they started giving me their crummy leads, right? And I started to learn how to vet people out. While at the same time, I was going to every networking and marketing event that I could, being in the
Mhm.
presence of movers and shakers, right? Meeting people, shaking hands. And it was 2 or 3 years of this before it really started to hit. Then I got recruited by Resolute Real Estate, another little boutique firm. And when I got recruited there, that's actually when things really started to take off because I learned a whole new method, a whole new paradigm of real estate at that point.
That's good. That's so good. So and I guess I explain it this way, and maybe you can add some color to this, but you really went from a transactional brokerage mindset
Yeah.
into more of a investment mindset. Like there was a
Yes.
big shift there, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what was that? Maybe you can kind of walk me through that shift in your mind. What changed and how you saw the business?
Yeah.
Because that's a
Absolutely.
big change.
It's a huge change, and a lot of brokers don't ever go through
That's
that
right.
paradigm change, right? There's a reason it's called a broker, right? As soon as you stop hunting, you're broke, you know? Um,
That's good. That's good.
so I was like, well, I love the hunt, right? I love the thrill of the hunt, whether it's in real estate or out in the wild. So I'll always have that aspect to me. But I knew that as time goes on, that energy is going to fade, right?
Yeah.
And I saw that this group emphasized, and really their thing was relationships. It was huge relationship brokerage, right? They have this thing called Whiskey Hour every Friday where they invite all of their clients and there's hors d'oeuvres and it's just a big networking thing, right? So that it was a huge emphasis on relationships. And through those relationships, opportunities were presented to them, which were presented to us, right? And had a good mentor there that really he was a Massimo coach, a real estate, commercial real estate coach, and he would really emphasize the value add of you know you don't trust a skinny chef. You know what I mean?
Good. It's
your
true.
your clients are going to trust you more if you own real estate, right? Because you're not
Yeah.
coming from a broker perspective, you're coming from an owner perspective.
Mm,
You've done so many things to where you know by trial and error on your own dime what to do, how to vet out tenants, how to structure a lease, how to structure a purchase in a way that is advantageous for them, right? And so on top of that, I mean, we're presented the best deals out there as brokers, right? And you should be able to capitalize on that. I mean, that's
yeah.
why we're in the industry. I mean, you should be cold calling for yourself. And
That's right.
I didn't have a whole lot of money to start off with, and so I had a couple big deals, and I threw in some cash into syndication deals, and that's where I got my first taste that hey, you don't need money. You don't need physical money to invest in real estate. And so remember distinctively the very first deal I did, I showed a client a property. It was 1510, 1512 First Street. I'm still still involved in this transaction to this day. Sold it,
Wow.
leased it multiple times over. But this one was super unique because I showed the building. It was just for lease and asked, hey, would you sell it? Owner said, yeah, I'd sell it. I said, what price? Super great price. I mean, the average per square foot cost was like 75, 80 at that point. He said 39 a foot. And at that point, I knew, okay, there's a deal to be had here, but I don't have any money. So I went back to my mentor, told him the deal, told him I have the tenant lined up. We put together a syndication, had the tenant lined up in escrow. And basically, I got equity in the deal just for putting the deal together, right?
Mhm.
Just for putting the deal together. And then I got my commission and then rolled my commissions into that deal. So I got even more equity on it. And so I realized that money isn't the hard part, it's finding the right deal. That's the
Yeah.
hard part. And so, us being brokers, that's what puts us in the strategic position to find those good deals. And if the deal's there, the money will come.
Yeah. That's good. No, that's really good. So 3.5 years ago, you and your partner, Jacob Lopez, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys started the commercial division. Everybody knows Berkshire Hathaway. It's a big company. Warren Buffett knows them. In New Mexico from scratch. So
Mhm.
what were the first 90 days like for you guys? What did it look like when y'all said, okay, we're going to do this right here in New Mexico?
Yeah, I think that's, so Jacob was a residential broker at that time, and I pulled him over to Resolute. I was like, "I need help." This is when I moved out to Indiana. I'm like, "I need help. Let's, share my business with you. Let's run this together."
Yeah.
For about 3 years or 2, I'd say 2 years at Resolute, and then we were like, "Man, this isn't working here. Our splits aren't good enough. Like, we need to go do our own thing. We have enough business." We were getting some big business at that point, and we're like, "We need to go start our own thing." So Jacob came from the residential world at Berkshire, and he knew Jim Pitts, who runs the residential realm over here, which is like 300 brokers statewide, 8 offices, so pretty massive footprint, right? And so
Yeah.
it's about who you know, right? And so
Yeah.
we were able to get into the room with him, and really great guy, and basically knew the business that we were doing, and said, "Hey, you guys take it and run with it. I'll fund it. I'll be a mentor, and you guys just take it and run with it." And so the first 90 days, I remember them distinctively when we decided that we were going to leave Resolute. We took a trip up to Angel Fire and rented a cabin and just stayed there, turned off our phones, and just brainstormed and game planned, right? And had some manifestation sessions and really just set the cornerstone of what we wanted
That's
this
good.
thing to be, set our intentions for what we wanted it to be. And what we wanted it to be was a brokerage that was by the broker and for the broker, right? Where brokers ate not like a lot of what they killed, like a majority of what they killed instead of
Yeah.
getting shafted on commissions, being able to have the wisdom on how to invest into properties, right? And how to leverage wealth and, just have the ability to have a good synergistic team. And so that was kind of our ethos. And the first 90 days, man, it was crazy. You had to build everything from scratch. You had to find a sign guy. We had to do branding. We had to freaking switch all of our listings over. It was chaos. I mean, it's still chaos, right? It's 3 years in, it's still chaos, but it's culminating into something that is becoming more structured, right? And I think the as time goes on, we because you have to work in your business and then work on your business. And I'm sure
Yeah.
you're in the same boat too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's the tough one to figure out.
You know what? I don't care. And I mean, exactly what you're describing is process, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't matter if you're starting out or if you've been in business for 20 years. Most of where roadblocks happen is a breakdown in a process
Yeah.
that didn't get defined or didn't get, and so you say, Jeb, well, how do you know what the process is if you've never started something? You
Yeah.
don't. You gotta learn, but once you see that gap, you have to figure out, okay, how do I attack it, and what's the process gonna be on that? So, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. You don't ever stop learning. I think
Yeah.
that's when you know you've messed up, when you stop learning.
Yeah.
But I think for people out there listening who are young and, eager to start something, I think this is great for them to hear because don't
Absolutely.
don't be fooled by, like, you're just gonna wake up and all the stuff's gonna fall in place. That's
Yeah.
not how it works.
No.
You're gonna try some things, it's gonna fail, but you gotta learn from that and say, "Okay, let's adjust that process. What is that?" But if you keep those processes in place and you define those and you get a good foundation on those,
Mhm.
it will help carry you through all the chaos rather than the noise taking your mind away from it and you're constantly moving back and forth, right? Yeah.
Those
Just
standard operating procedures are huge, man. We
huge.
harp on those things like nobody's business, man. We try to we I mean, every time we figure out how to do something, we're like standard oper SOP,
That's
SOP,
it.
like create it, write it down. I mean,
They're
because that's the
huge.
only way to do it. I mean,
They're huge, and it just helps everybody understand, and it helps you to
yeah,
know the gaps where you're at too, so
yeah,
that's good. So, Christian, here you are, you we kinda walked through your history a little bit. You started out, grew up with a family that's in construction, been in that. You started it, small, boots on the ground, no playbook. Here you go do it, figure it out. And now you're sitting here as a part owner in a company that, for lack of better words, has been very successful in New Mexico and growing a great book of business and very well known in that market. What do you if you had to tell the Christian that was 20 years old going into this, what would be one thing you would tell them now that you've learned that you'd tell that young entrepreneur or whatever that maybe you've learned? Like, I'd whisper this to this person. What would that
Yeah.
be?
And it's interesting. I was talking to my wife about this yesterday. I was looking at old pictures and I was like, man, if I could go back and tell my younger version of myself something. My wife said something really, really cool to me that resonated. She said, I don't think you tell them anything. I think that you would tell them you're on the right track and just keep going, right? Because everything, all the mistakes that you made, everything that you've done led you to where you are now, right? And I think that that's really important. I think it's the trial and error, right? I think it's just the mentality. If I did go back and I did tell my younger self one thing, I think that it would be you're doing the right thing and just keep going, right? Because you're you can give somebody a playbook, right, of what to do, but sometimes that's a hindrance, I feel like. If you give somebody all the knowledge and they haven't worked for it in the sense that they have not experienced it, they're
Yeah,
not going to value that knowledge, right? So I think that
fair.
going through the trial and tribulation of really, you know, failing, learning how to prioritize yourself, I think it's all a part of the process, right? It's all a part of the
It's just
process.
I call it the scars. You got to have the scars as an entrepreneur to earn it. But I think a lot of people that my hope is, and the reason one of the reasons I have this podcast is I'm hoping that other inspiring entrepreneurs or business owners or business, maybe if they're in the shoes that you've been
Yeah.
in and they're sitting there, frustrated or, beat down maybe a little bit that they're sitting there and they're struggling. And,
Yeah.
that's the purpose behind this is maybe they hear this and say, hey, you know what? That's me and I need some help with that.
Yeah.
I think, and I ask you this question as a business owner,
Mhm.
how do you feel about asking for help? Because that's tough sometimes to ask.
We have to. I mean, that's how we got to where we are as humans, right? We
Yeah.
didn't get to we're not apex predators. We can't go hunt like lions. I mean, we got to where we are by coming together as groups of people and working together through our differences and really understanding when you get into a higher level, understanding that competition is kind of a low vibration frequency and
Yeah.
collaboration is a high vibration
Yeah.
frequency, right? And
That's good.
understand that your competitors can actually be some of your best collaborators, right? And if somebody is competing with you and they're on the same level, reach out to them, ask them questions, right?
Sure.
Build rapport with them because you're going to learn things. It's not about you're not racing somebody, you're not in competition with somebody else. You're just trying to be the best version of who you can be. And so I think another thing is it's good to have that competitive spirit. I think all entrepreneurs do have a competitive spirit and you should keep that competitive edge,
Good.
but really know that the highest level of that competitive spirit is knowing that you're not in competition with anybody and to ask for help when you need it and not be prideful because pride is kind of the destruction of any great empire, I think. So
No, I totally agree. And I think, you know, I've had a lot of people on my show and we've had this conversation. And it always seems that people who've been in business, before being in business, you'll say, hey, I'm not going to associate with my competition.
yeah,
But now being in business, you're like, no, you should, because
you need
that's
to.
that's that's like-minded people that can steer off questions and things like that. So I think that's a good nugget for new entrepreneurs is don't be afraid of your competition, embrace
Yeah,
them and learn from them and help, they'll help you grow and chances are you'll help them grow. There's enough business for all of us. Don't be so worried that,
yeah,
be competitive, but
yeah,
also be okay with talking to other people. So, um,
absolutely.
and we're almost out of time here. This has been fantastic. Just curious, like, you got a good running business there.
Mhm.
Is there an area where, you're dabbling? I always ask this question to everybody. I bring it up because AI is such a big word that's
Yeah,
happening in our world right now. Do you use any AI in your business, or are you exploring it, or
yeah,
your thoughts, like, dislike? What's your thoughts on that?
absolutely. I mean, I have my existential thoughts. of artificial intelligence, and then I have my
Yeah.
thoughts in regard to business, right? And its business applications. And I think the business applications are tremendous, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that it's a reflection of us. I think that um, it really uh, expedites mundane tasks that that take away time so you can focus on your signal work and kind of delete the noise like you were talking about. Yeah, man. I mean, we're working with, ChatGPT we were doing a lot with. Now we've kind of switched away from ChatGPT and we use Claude for creating standard operating procedures, different underwriting tools.
Yeah.
I feel like Claude is a really good help with creating those spreadsheets and really the more business centric stuff.
Yeah.
As far as like automation and stuff, I mean, we're doing educational videos, so we're using AI video generator creators from our blogs, and then we put we put everything in there, the verbiage, and it spits us out a video. And then we pump that out into our audience. And so, yeah, just all different types of things, man. And I think that it's really creating an ecosystem of automation, right?
Yeah.
The more you can automate things, the better. I mean, you still do need people, and people are always going to
Absolutely.
be a huge component. You're never going to get rid of people. They're just going to fit in different roles, right? And I think
Yeah.
that that's kind of where we're at right now. We're hiring people to leverage the AI.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and I think there's a lot of business people are exactly where you are right now. And AI is here and it's growing and it's developing, and there's a fear that it's going to take away humans, and I don't look at it that way because
Yeah.
again, I've said this before. I think the human element is so important, and you should have it.
Hmm.
You just have to figure out a way to leverage these tools. They're already there. If
They're
they're
there.
going to be if they're going to be there, you might as well use them, right? Because they're not going to go away. They're just going to get better. And
Yeah.
so how do you using that to help with the process? And it's that's really the way it is, I always tell people if I can get more hours back in my day, that's a win. Then I
Absolutely.
got time to do things that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. Well, listen, man, what a great time I've spent with you, getting to know you. If people were in New Mexico or surrounding areas and they wanted to get in touch with you to have a conversation, maybe they're looking for a piece of property or maybe they have a piece of property they'd like to
Yeah.
sell. How do they get a hold of you?
You can reach me at, well, what would be the best mode of communication? Our real estate pages on all social media, Berkshire Hathaway NM Commercial Real Estate. If you have an Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, you can go and message and request me. If you're in town and you want to see some properties, my email is cfile@cre.com. And yeah, you know, the social, you'll probably see our signs everywhere too. We got our signs at quite a few. We have 70 listings right now, so
Wow.
we're a little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so really social media and email are the best modes of communication to reach.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you're out there and you're looking for a piece of property, like I said, or an investment, Christian's team over there in New Mexico, Berkshire Hathaway Commercial Division, they're great people. They know the market. They could probably put you on an area that would help you save a lot of time and research that. And they're just a phenomenal group of people. I've really enjoyed my time with them. And like I said, if you're out there listening and you want to ask more questions about the brokerage side of things and maybe learn a little bit more, uh, always connect with Christian. But again, for myself at Stonefly Consulting, that's our job. We're here to help bridge the gap, help companies grow, help them with processes over pressure. We want it to be a process and less pressure on you. So love to have you reach out at stoneflyconsulting.com. And again, thank you for joining the podcast, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show. Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Chad. Have a good one.